Shalom, shalom. I just want to welcome everyone to the Sabbath Day conference call. This is Barbara serving as your host today, and Brother Pete is here as your co-host.
This is Pete. I'm so glad you were able to join us today for this important discussion.
Well, our title is, Why Do the Jews Keep Saturday Sabbath? And the Jews keep Gregorian Saturday as Sabbath, and they abandoned the lunar Sabbath. So why does everyone follow the Jews? Well, in this video, we're going to explain what happened. There is nothing subtle about the Jews' adoption of a counterfeit Sabbath, because it is well documented.
The Sabbath is the seventh day of the lunar week. This from Theodore Gilman. Quote, the changes in the calendric position of the weekly religious rest day have been few from prehistoric times to the present day. The Sabbath, which came down to the Jews from prehistoric, that is prior to Moses' time, was the seventh day of the lunar week. The lunar week and the lunar month gave the simplest form of time division to early man. Moon and month meant the same thing. The division of the month into 4 weeks of 7 days, and the weekly division begun again at the time of the next new moon. The changes from the lunar week to the 7-day week running contiguously or continuously through the year, while a momentous change was unrecorded. The use of two styles of weeks seem to have existed together, and the more modern 7-day week slowly but finally supplanted its ancient competitor. Continuing, the lunar week was simple and serviceable. When the continuous 7-day week was gradually accepted, then it was linked with the past, as we now date events before Christ by a scale unknown to the people and historians of those times. The lunar Sabbath was succeeded by the 7-day weekly Sabbath without confusion, and the mention of the Sabbath in Exodus 31:13 and elsewhere may be taken to refer to the lunar day. That again from Theodore Gilman.
And I'll leave all these links below for you to look up for yourself. So the Sabbath was dependent on the lunar cycle, and this is a quote from Universal Jewish Encyclopedia for page 410. From holidays, the Jewish holidays may be grouped under the following heads. 1, Sabbath and new moon, Rosh Chodesh, both periodically reoccurring in the course of the year. The new moon is still, and the Sabbath originally was dependent upon the lunar cycle. Both date back to the nomadic period of Israel. Originally, the new moon was celebrated in the same way as the Sabbath. Gradually, it became less important, while the Sabbath became more and more a day of religion and humanity, of religious meditation and instruction, of peace and delight of the soul, and produced powerful and beneficent efforts outside of Judaism. Jews adopt Babylonian astronomy and their way of reckoning time. Well, here's a quote. It is not easy to draw any rigid line separating Orthodox Jewish law and Jewish custom. There is an ancient saying that in Judaism, custom becomes law. And the history of Judaism will reveal many religious laws widely recognized and observed, which had their origin in long-accepted folk practices. And when the Jews returned to Palestine after their Babylonian exile, that's 516 BCE, they brought back with them the Babylonian astronomy and way of reckoning of time. And there's the quote from you, What is a Jew, page 105 and 108.
Hutton Webster writes in his book, Rest Days, these imported from Babylon superstitions eventually led Jewish rabbis to call Saturn, Sabbatai, the star of the Sabbath, and it was not until after the 1st century of our era, when the planetary week had become an established institution, that the Jewish Sabbath seemed always to have corresponded to Saturn's day, that is, Saturday. Again, from Rest Days, page 244. Hutton also writes, the establishment of a periodic week ending in Sabbath observed every 7th day was doubtless responsible for the gradual obsolescence of the new moon festival as a period of general abstinence, since with the continuous weeks, the new moon and the Sabbath day would from time to time coincide, again from the book Rest Days, page 255.
So, with the development of the importance of the Sabbath as a day of consecration and the emphasis laid upon the significant number 7, the week became more and more divorced from its lunar connection, and that's from the Universal Jewish Encyclopedia. So beginning in the morning, day beginning in the morning was changed to day beginning in the evening. And here's a quote from the New Catholic Encyclopedia, volume 11. Later, Orthodox Jewish calendar, following the reign of King Josiah in c. 640 to 609, and especially after the Babylonian exile, a number of significant and enduring changes occurred in the Israelite calendar, showing that the Orthodox Pharisee Jews gradually adopted the Babylonian calendar of the time. The day, however, was counted from evening to evening after the Babylonian fashion. So with the older time-keeping system, day was reckoned from morning to morning originally. And this is from the Rabbinic essays. In certain spheres of the population, the older system of time measuring continued to be in use, either exclusively or side by side with the newer system. Thus, in the temple service, the older system continued all through the time of the existence of the Second Temple, and there the day was reckoned from morning to morning.
With the destruction of the temple in AD 70, the Sadducees disappeared altogether, leaving the regulation of all Jewish affairs in the hands of the Pharisees. Henceforth, Jewish life was regulated by the Pharisees. The whole history of Judaism was reconstructed from the Babylonian Pharisaic point of view, and a new aspect was given to the Sanhedrin of the past. A new chain of tradition supplanted the older priestly tradition, as it once was. Babylonian Phariseeism shaped the character of Judaism and the life and thought of the Jews for all the future. That's under Pharisees in the New Jewish Encyclopedia. See reference. Several customs which prevailed during the age between the exodus of the Jews and the resurrection of Christ having completely changed by the 17th Christian century, and the translators of the authorized version, the English Bible, were not able to perceive some important truths taught in the Greek version of the Old Testament and the Greek New Testament. Unseen truth would not be clearly translated into the English Bible. The student, who of necessity was limited in his studies to the English version, would not be able to see more truth than was expressed in the English version. And since the Jews for more than 16 centuries have been observing a Saturday Sabbath, and since Christians have been for more than 18 centuries having a fixed Sunday Sabbath, it is only reasonable to expect most Sabbath writers to try to interpret all biblical Sabbath teaching on the theory of six septenary cycles. But the noted Rabbi Hirsch believes and teaches that, quote, the old Jewish Sabbath had no connection with a fixed cycling week. That again from Pharisees, section of Pharisees, New Jewish Encyclopedia.
So old lunar calendar fades away. The passing out of sight of the old Bible calendar, the Bible lunar calendar, and the now almost universal effort to interpret the Bible upon the basis of solar calendars. And that, too, is from the Pharisees, the Jewish Encyclopedia. So the Jews even came to name the planet Saturn Sabbatai.
Jewish author Theodore Zerubbabel, in his book, The 7-Day Circle, The History and Meaning of the Week, observes that, quote, the Jewish and astrological weeks evolved quite independently of one another. However, given the coincidence of their identical length, it was only a matter of time before some permanent correspondence between particular Jewish days and particular planetary days would be made. A permanent correspondence between the Sabbath and the day of Saturn was thus established sometime later than the 1st century of the present era. Jews even came to name the planet Saturn Sabbatai, after the original Hebrew name of the Sabbath, Sabbath. Again, that's from New York Free Press. Page 7.
So how did we get the Gregorian calendar? Well, Rome abandons the lunar calendar. In the mid-1st century BC, Julius Caesar invited Sosthenes, an Alexandrian astronomer, to advise him about the reform of the calendar. And Sosthenes decided that the only practical step was to abandon the lunar calendar altogether. Months must be arranged on a seasonal basis and a tropical or solar year used, as in the Egyptian calendar. And that's from the Julian calendar Encyclopedia Britannica. So the Roman calendar, all Christianized churches are under the fraudulent guidelines of the Babylonian Roman Christianity and their uniquely crafted time-measuring model that is found nowhere in Scripture. Single-handedly, Roman Emperor Julius Caesar divorced the moon from all units of time in 45 BC. Then later, the Jews in the 4th century AD were pressured to change their calendar to what is now in conformity to the Babylonian Roman system. At that time, under the direction of Hillel II, the Israelites chose to use the Babylonian calendar model for new moons and the Roman continuous weekly cycle. And then, in 1582, Pope Gregory XIII started the Gregorian calendar. It went from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar that is in use today. And the rules we were all taught for time measuring are as far from scriptural truth as a wall calendar is from the sun, moon, and stars. Both the Old Testament and the New Testament declare time is ruled by the three-part harmony, the trio of lights above, and nothing refers to the Roman wall calendar in all of the Scripture. So this is a discovery of eternal weight for those who seek truth, as for buried treasure and desire knowledge that they may walk in it.
The solar-only Roman calendar and all its units of time are fraudulent replacements for our Creator's original calendar. To discover that neither Saturday nor Sunday is the sacred Sabbath of the Bible, it is an expose of one of the greatest deceptions of all time, especially against Yahweh the Most High and those seeking to worship Him in truth. Add to this that our entire calendar paradigm is a lie directly from Satan's seat of government, referred to in Scripture as Babylon. Babylon the harlot.
Yeah, and we did a video about this, the dragon and the calendar. And the dragon is Pope Gregory the 13th, sign and signia. So Scripture says that the Sabbath is regulated by the moon. Divine designation of the moon. Utilizing the moon as a beacon of time for sacred worship assemblies is how our Creator designed his lunar months and weeks and days to synchronize his children to his seat of power. Through this unchangeable sequence of time measuring, everyone can know how much they are loved and continually invited into assembly with their loving Creator. This lunar arrangement of time measuring is no more worshiping the moon than those who keep Saturday or Sunday are worshiping their clock or wall calendar. But strikingly, the sun was not ordained to call the sacred assemblies of Yahweh. Instead, it was the moon.
Psalm 104:19. He appointed the moon for seasons. The sun knoweth his going down. Isaiah 60:20. Never shall the enumerating repetition of your sun and your lunar month cycle not gather assembly. Psalm 89:37. It shall be established forever, like the moon, even like the trustworthy witness in the sky.
So each person must pray for truth, a heart of wisdom to stand firmly upon the foundation of the Creator's ordained time-measuring model, and the courage to walk away from all doctrinal error and most leaders who were never ordained by the Most High. Might this issue of time-measuring methods be the testing truth of the last days by the Most High, as he sets about to separate his obedient sheep from the rebellious goats? Who would have thought that in addition to Sunday, even Saturday is not the true Sabbath? You can't find a single verse in the Bible commanding worship on either Saturday or Sunday. The biblical calendar's months and weeks are based upon the moon's lunar cycle.
How to read the Bible cycle, the Bible calendar. Beginning with the dark moon, that is Kodesh, as the original new moon of our Creator. Then count 7 days to the Sabbath of the first quarter phase. 7 more days, and you are at the Sabbath of the full moon and the middle of the month. Count 7 more to reach the Sabbath of the third quarter phase. 7 more to the fourth Sabbath, and that is directly followed by the new moon.
So Psalms 89:37 says, "It shall be established forever like the moon, even like the trustworthy witness in the sky." And that is in the sky for us forever, and it has been forever since creation. So to access more information about the lunar Sabbath, about how the rules of postponement, about Hillel 2, that the weekly cycle has not been continuous, please go to our website, lunarsabbathday.com. And please like if this is a blessing to you, and please share it with your friends that love Yeshua. So thank you, everyone, for being here today.